Welcome to the Marriage Monday podcast, where Jesus is celebrated and marriage is elevated. Hebrews 13:4 says, marriage should be honored by all. This podcast is designed to share biblical principles on how to honor your marriage and the gift that marriage is from God. My name is Dave Jenkins, and I'm your relationship coach and host of this podcast. I help couples, dating or married, to transform their relationship breakdowns into relationship breakthroughs. If you want to know more about what I do, or you'd like to set up your free Restore My Relationship session, go to my website at www.coachingforcouples.com. That's coaching followed by the number 4, couples.com, or call me at 469-626-7750. Well, my podcast guest today is Dr. Bernard Kimble. He is senior pastor of Mount Olive Baptist Church of Shreveport, and we've got a topic that is really relevant. I know a lot of our members of this podcast listening community, you're involved in ministry, so we're going to talk about how to successfully balance ministry and marriage together, how to have a great marriage and a great ministry. Dr. Kimble has been the pastor of Mount Olive since 1997. He is a charter member of the Cedar Grove Clergy Council. Cedar Grove Clergy Council consists of clergy from all denominations working to improve the political climate and quality of life for the citizens of Cedar Grove community of Shreveport, Louisiana. He has been instrumental in organizing several community meetings and neighborhood cleanup campaigns, and he is a Louisiana pastoral crisis interventionist. Dr. Kimble is also founder and CEO of the Olive Branch Ministries Incorporated, a nonprofit outreach ministry of the Mount Olive Baptist Church of Shreveport. Olive Branch Ministry is focused on community development, tutorial, and computer literacy for both youth and senior citizens. As founder of CEO of Bernard Kimble Ministries, Dr. Kimble hosts and sponsors In the Word radio broadcast, which is aired on KOKA, that's 980 a.m., Sunday mornings at 9:30, and In the Word television broadcast on NBC6 in Shreveport at 5:30 a.m. on Sunday morning. And he is the author of The Decay of the African American Family. I read that book. It's a wonderful book. It focuses on the decay of the African American family from a biblical perspective. Dr. Kimble is also co-founder of Women of Vision Incorporated, along with First Lady, his wife, Pheobe Kimble, an interdenominational ministry designed to educate, encourage, and motivate women in leadership roles. Dr. Kimble earned his Bachelor of Arts and Master's degree in Bible and Theology from Louisiana Baptist University. And he's married to the wonderful Phoebe Thomas Kimble, and they have 2 sons and 1 daughter and some beautiful, beautiful grandchildren. So, Pastor Kimble, how are you today?
I'm wonderful. How about yourself?
I am great. Hey, before we get into the podcast, tell us a little bit about your church and some of the great things you got going on there and how people can connect with you.
Well, listen, Mount Olive Baptist Church of Shreveport is certainly a very, very old church. In fact, this year we will be celebrating 134 years. And,
Wow.
Of course, I've been a proud pastor here for about 20 of those 134 years. And so I'm real excited about that. And, of course, we have 2 powerful worship services on Sunday, 8 o'clock a.m., and then, of course, again at 11 o'clock a.m., and, of course, I invite people to spend their lunch with me Wednesday for the In the Word Bible study at 12 noon, and then In the Word Bible study again on Thursday nights at 6 o'clock p.m. And, of course, we do stream live each and every Sunday morning here from our church, simply by going to mountoutShreveport.org and clicking on the live link. It can put you right in worship with us. And, of course, we have exciting news that's happening through Olive Branch Ministries. We just recently broke ground on a new senior apartment complex that's going to house about 50 units for senior citizens, age 55 and older. And, of course, we're looking for the real work to really get started here in just a couple of weeks.
Wow, that is so exciting, all of it that you talked about. And I remember speaking with you no more than 2 years ago about the desire to do something for the senior community through your ministry there. So you've moved from conception to realization in a swift pace there. So God has definitely had his hands on you guys there.
Well, thank you so much. Yes, we have.
Well, tell me a little bit. You're married. How many years have you been married there?
Been married for 41 years, and of course, I was very, very blessed and fortunate that I married my high school sweetheart, Miss Pheobe, and of course, we have 3 wonderful children. They're now all grown, 2 boys and a girl, and of course, we have about 6 grandchildren.
Wow. Excellent, excellent. Now, I gave to our podcast audience your bio so they could see the type of ministries that you're involved in, both in the church as well as community. 41 years of marriage. Congratulations, Dr. Kimble, to you and First Lady Pheobe.
Thank you.
She is an outstanding woman. She and my wife have had an opportunity to share the word together and just do some great things as well. So that really qualifies you to really speak to us today about this whole thing of how to balance ministry and marriage, because I believe all too often we see models of those who are in marriage and those who are in ministry, and one is doing well and maybe the other isn't. One is succeeding and doing great and the other is not. So what we want to do is go through some things here that can help our audience, help those listening to understand, hey, look, you can have both a great marriage and a great ministry if you know how to place things in the right biblical order. So let me start with my first question here. Do you have to choose between having a successful ministry that has impact and a marriage that is meaningful and a blessing? And do you have to choose one or the other?
Well, no, I really don't think so, Dave. You really don't have to choose one or the other. I think what you have to do is to be an orderly and organized individual, and of course, to have a spouse or a mate to help share your vision for ministry.
Yes, yeah, I think that is so important, having that common vision for ministry. And what are some of the things that you do maybe to discover if you have a common vision, or discover if you don't, and how do you work around that?
Well, actually, I spent a lot of time in communication, and of course, I think, communication is so vital. It's so important that, couples talk, and they share dreams and they share visions, and in their sharing of their dreams and visions, they have to also share ways to include their spouse or their mate, and I think once you do that, then they too take ownership in what you're trying to do, and for the most part, they'll help you with your accomplishments.
That is so true. Just like a church or a ministry organization has a set time for strategic planning sessions, has a set time to do some evaluation. Couples in ministry together, whether it's both of them in ministry or just one, they have to sit down and take some time to do some vision casting and some planning together, I guess.
Oh, sure. By all means. I think it's vital. Phoebe and I do that quite often because not only do I pastor Mount Olive Church, I have Olive Branch Ministries and Bernard Kimble Ministries, and she has one of the Vision Shreveport Ministry. And so if we didn't take a moment to actually sit down and talk to see how these ministries can help support each other and work together, then we would probably have a little bit of chaos and confusion there. And then by the same measure, we must set boundaries and know when it's not time to have discussions about ministry. It's time to have discussions about ourselves and our relationship. And of course, we have, Friday night is our date night, and we just keep that religiously. And of course, a lot of times I, will actually say no to some engagements because Friday night is just that important to our relationship. And it's an order that we've established, and we work very hard to try and keep it.
Wow, wow. That kind of leads me to my next question, because you got to be able to set boundaries. And you kind of just talked about one that is you guys still date with one another, and that's so critical to keeping a marriage relationship alive. That's one boundary. You try to keep that time sacred and not allow any interruptions if at all possible. What do you say to somebody that's kind of lost their boundaries? Maybe they're allowing people to come to the home after hours to work on ministry things, or maybe they're spending more time away from home. How do you get some boundaries placed back in your life to help your marriage?
Well, I think you just got to sit down and just draft that plan, put it on paper, make that schedule known to your staff people and people that you work with. One of the things I do is I, insist that my staff people here at a church, I insist that they, allow me to handle church business at church. And of course, a personal phone call to the house on my own personal time, that's kind of a no-no unless it's an emergency. And of course, if it's an emergency, those of us in ministry, we have to respond.
Right.
But if it's for the day-to-day operation of ministry and it's not anything that's really, really necessary or essential, then when we're home, we try and be home.
Yeah, yeah. Jesus set a real good model for that, because although we know his heart was to minister to people and his purpose was to come to redeem and to save, he still had time where he pulled away. He still had time where he got away from everybody. And sometimes as ministers, you love what you're doing, you feel the tug, and your heart is so torn, but you got to be able to pull away sometimes to keep yourself. Dr. E.K. Bailey, whom I think you know, who was a great expositor, he always said, if you don't pull apart, you will fall apart.
That's right.
So
I'm a firm believer.
Those things are so, yeah. So now, the thing about it is, the next question I have as we talk about this is, what are the consequences to a man or a woman who's been a good leader in ministry but not in their marriage? I mean, we have some examples in the Bible. I think of David as an outstanding spiritual leader, but in terms of managing his home and managing some of those aspects, he didn't do so well at times, and some of it came back to bite him. What are some of the things that can happen with us if we don't manage well as a leader in the ministry but fail to do so in our marriage?
Well, it's really kind of evident that, if you are actually in ministry and you're managing ministry well and you're not managing your home well, it won't be long before you're not managing either one of them well. Because I'm a firm believer that your home life will show up in your ministry life. And that's just, a pure fact. And I think if one allows himself to get there, then they must take a moment and maybe pull back from ministry, and focus on their home life and try to get that right. Because, the Bible often speaks about man, especially, a pastor, and preacher, they must rule their own home well. They must have their children in protection. But they have to have order at home. And so if you have order at church and not at home, I think that's out of order. You need to back up and get home straight and then church, And I think that's how God would really have it, because if you're managing the church well and not managing your home well, then that's not the right balance. That's just not the right balance.
Yeah, that is so true. And I think you see a lot of it, Dr. Kimble. Shreveport is somewhat indicative of a lot of cities. There's about a church on every corner, and everybody wants to have a ministry, but all those things take a lot of time and effort, and so people may not realize it's important how to balance those two. So if you've got someone who's just starting out in ministry, and you've got a young man or a young woman that's leading up in ministry, and they come to you and say, hey, how do I prioritize this family life as well as ministry? Because they're carrying the thought process, hey, I got this ministry. God has given me this particular assignment. I got to get it done. but maybe they don't realize they've actually got two assignments and not just one.
That's right. That's right. And there again, Dave, I feel like it's vital, and of course, for that couple to first of all spend time in dialogue, spend time in conversation,